Now, here's the beautiful thing about that example. So I have a testimony from a gentleman named Ross Nichols, who went to a conference where you heard Professor Howard speak. And Howard spoke about this passage. And Nichols raised his hand and he said, well, he says, and this is before I even heard of Shem Tov's Hebrew Matthew or this whole issue of Matthew 23. This was years before that. He says, well, Professor Howard, but what if it is, he says, referring to Moses? And Howard said, I never thought of that.
Okay.
So because he never thought of it, he fixed he fixed the text, air quotes, fixed, thereby he corrected it, right? So this is interesting. We talk about the difficult version is preferable sometimes. Right. The difficult reading is preferable. And that's because something scribes in the Middle Ages had a tendency to do, which was fix the text, i.e. change it to fit their preconceptions and understanding. Well, modern scholars do that too. And we've called that Howarding the text. And now I think Keith is about to expose me.
So
Howarding the text.
So there are times, so I'm going
you must not share this.
I'm going to show letter by letter, hours, letter by letter. And what I want to say about that, Nehemia, is you gave me a chance to do something that I just wouldn't have had an opportunity to do had you not provided it. And he's like, okay, Keith, your job is to go behind me and go letter by letter, learning the cursive in that particular manuscript. There's so many different cursive.
Or semi-cursive.
The semi-cursive. Yeah. But then I thought to myself, I wonder if there's ever been a time where Nehemia has done this, outside. Now, I just happened to bring this. This is the Gospel of Matthew according to the primitive Hebrew text. If you haven't watched episode 22 or 23, we talked about this. This was the first thing that Nehemia sent me. And so in preparation for episode 19, I opened this up just for fun.
And to put it in context, I sent you that sometime in the early 2000s.
Oh, it was a long time ago. So I thought to myself, I wonder if there's ever an example where the scribe, Nehemia, Howard, whoever would actually do a note or anything. And so it's now time for us to go to episode. This is happening in real time, folks. We are at episode number 20. What?
What are we on? What is this
episode?
26.
26. And we're reading from Matthew 5:19, which was a game changer for me.
What page is this?
This is page number 19. Can you tell me there's some writing over the top of this, Nehemia? I don't know. We'll be able to show this.
Here's what I did.
Okay.
I was at the Mount Scopus Library in Jerusalem, and I took Shem Tov's, I took this book of Howard, the Gospel of Matthew according to primitive Hebrew text, went down to the basement, photocopied the whole thing, then made a second copy. Later, I made a second copy for you, but initially I had my own copy. And as I was reading through my own copy, I came to Matthew 5:19, and I saw this word, Aleph Lamed Mem Dalet, Elamed, that I teach, Asher Elamed, that I teach. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. And I wrote in pencil, R dot, which means read it, Ve'yelamed, and he will teach.
Okay, folks.
So I corrected the text because the text didn't make any sense at the time.
There were times.
And then I sent you a photocopy, including my correction.
And I found it. So there are times when we were going through this where we'd say, is this a Howard issue? Now, Nehemia, we're now going to 5:19.
Yes, I Howarded the text.
Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. This is the beauty of having people looking at what you've always said is, let's look at the source. Matthew 5:19, folks, really was a game changer because Matthew 5:19, there's a word that potentially could be different, interpreted differently. I don't want to go into great depth, Nehemia, but the second thing that you did that changed the game is after we went through that whole process, you said, in order for us to send this manuscript to a vowel pointer in Israel, one of the best, we need to make sure that we have it right. And we even found some things that he did. I think they're even in this verse.
Oh, boy.
So, Nehemia, can you just explain just a little bit before we get into this, why it was that you said we should have this vowel pointed? Can you just help people with that?
So, first of all, I want to make this accessible to as wide an audience as possible.
There it is.
What I could do is say, okay, there's 28 manuscripts. Go and learn to read a half a dozen different types of scripts, right. And you'll be able to read these yourself, and you don't need me. But the average person, can't do that, or if you could do it, not the average person, even the scholars would say, I don't have time to do that. So I wanted to make it as accessible as possible. And so putting vowels in the text makes it possible for somebody with rudimentary knowledge of Hebrew to be able to read it and to understand it a lot better than if you don't have any vowels. Now, when you put in vowels, you're also interpreting things.
And that's big.
Right. Now, sometimes there's only one way to read things, but other times there's multiple ways, multiple potentialities with how you put the vowels in. And what I wanted to do is put those vowels in, show people, okay, here's one way to read it based on these manuscripts. And ultimately what I want to do is have it so that people can read it from any manuscript.
There you go.
Right? In other words, there are technologies out there that we're still exploring where you could say, you know what, I want to see what manuscript C says and have that text with full vowels. I want to see manuscript F, click a button, have that with full vowels. I want to see manuscript C compared to manuscript F. And dynamically, this software can then put, now we don't have that software yet. We're working with some people to try to apply that to Shem Tov's Hebrew Matthew. But make it so that people have access to this kind of, and I'm looking here at a spreadsheet, literally an Excel spreadsheet that has hundreds and hundreds of columns, and each column is a different word in a different manuscript. And this kind of blew me away when we were preparing this. We were originally talking about doing all of chapter 5, beginning in verse 13 through the end. And I said, Keith, this is over 10,000 data points.
Yeah.
Right? There's X number of words times 20 manuscripts, and starting in verse 27, there's more than 20 manuscripts. This is over 10,000 data points. This is going to take a little bit longer than we anticipated. And so we kind of took a smaller section and did it in more detail. But so the purpose of the vowels for me is, number one, make it accessible, and number two, to provide people with the different understandings of different ways to read it. Because sometimes, and this is what happened initially when I made that Howard correction in the text, I Howarded the text because I read the text as it appeared with my preconceptions of what I thought it should say, and it made zero sense to me. Good. So I said, this has to be an error, and I corrected it. Now, maybe it is an error, my correction was right, but what I want to do is say, okay, here's the text we have. What does it mean based on the way it's written? This was actually a profound experience I had when I was studying at Hebrew University. I had this class, and in the class, the professor was talking about one of the great scholars of the mid-20th century who was a professor at Hebrew University. And what he was famous for was correcting the text. And I don't mean the correct of the Gospel of Matthew. He was correcting the text of Amos. He was correcting the text of Isaiah. He was correcting the text of the Torah. He would read a passage and say, that can't be what it means. And he would modify the text to fit his understanding of what it should mean.